I'm Mike Brewer, and this is the Road to Fulfillment podcast. Every month, you'll hear real stories from real leaders sharing their journey to success and what they found on the road to fulfillment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Road to Fulfillment podcast. This is episode 3, and it is the second episode of my solo series, The 3 Pillars of Fulfillment. Last week, I talked about the importance of connections, our relationships, to our own personal fulfillment and our professional fulfillment. And this week, I want to talk about mission. Now, if you missed last week's, don't hesitate to go back and listen to it. It is important. It does matter because our relationships do matter. And the previous week, I interviewed Spencer Robinette of Harbor House Creative. If you haven't heard that one, you'll want to hear Spencer's story of success and what he's up to and what he's doing on his journey to finding fulfillment. So this week, I want to talk about one of the pillars of fulfillment, which is mission. And I'd like to start by asking a question. What's worse for you? Finding out that you've been coasting through too much of your life and wasting time, or feeling stuck in either your personal development or your professional development? Those are both tough things, and quite frankly, I feel like they're both very common. And in my life, they've both been very common, and they've both been very painful as I've taken time to think about both of them, think about time wasted, and to think about not being on mission. Now, while feeling stuck and feeling like we're coasting are natural parts of life and natural parts of our development, I do believe there's a way to sidestep those things, or at least find ourselves when we're in them and find our way out. It's very similar to my journey through depression. I've talked about this before, but for a long time I suffered from severe depression, and I found my way out of it, and it wasn't through meds. But part of that journey was being able to recognize when I was in depression, and then being able to recognize when a wave of depression was coming on me. And from there, recognizing when a wave was coming and then be able to fend it off. There was a progression to it. And I believe when it comes to feeling stuck and coasting in life, there's that same progression. That progression is finding the way to sidestep the situation, finding a way to sidestep feeling stuck, finding a way to sidestep the coasting before we ever get there. And that way is knowing your mission and being on mission. I believe our Creator has given us all a mission in this life, and He expects us to be on mission, and not just because He wants it that way, but because our own personal road to fulfillment, ourselves finding fulfillment, does depend on whether or not we're on mission. And today I want to explore a few things. Number one, how to figure out what our mission statement is, how to figure out what our mission is, and also, how do we stay on mission? Once we know what it is, what do we do with it? Those are the things I want to talk about today. So let me start with a common question. Mike, what is it? What do I need to figure out what my mission is right now? Or do I wait until my mission presents itself to me? Well, let me encourage you, do not wait for your mission to present itself to you, because number one, sometimes it might be presenting itself to you and we're missing it. And number two, a lot of time can be spent coasting, waiting on our mission to reveal itself to us. So yes, figure out what your mission is. 1000% yes, figure out what your mission is. How do we do that? If I don't know what my mission is, Mike, how do I figure out what it is? Don't you think I'd be on mission if I knew? Yes, I get it. So I want to talk about some very practical things today to help figure out what our mission is and how to be on it. Number one, it's important to be aware that there are consequences to not being on mission. Every choice has a consequence. Every avoidance of a choice has a consequence, and avoiding being on mission means time lost and means being held back in whatever we're trying to do, whether that's personally or professionally. Those are consequences, and those are real. And the fact is, we've all experienced them at some point in our life through feeling stuck or coasting. Now, how do we avoid those? Let's figure out what our mission is. If you don't know your mission, this part is for you. So number one, in trying to figure out what your mission is, I want you to ask yourself a question. What are you compelled to do? What is driving you or what is trying to drive you internally? A lot of us will call it a calling. We know that there's something we need to be doing because we keep being compelled to do it or called to do it or pushed in a certain direction. If that's you, if you have something like that, give into it and figure out what it's trying to tell you. Write it down, take notes, explore it, but I encourage you, do not ignore it. Figure out what that is. It's important to listen to that internal call. It's important to listen to an external call because sometimes it's coming to us from an outside source. But listen to what that is, figure out what it is. Now, number two, values. I'm going to encourage you to make a values list. Figure out what you value the most. Spend time on it. Don't just think in your head, I value my job, my family. Because if that's the case, we're all going to have the same list and it's not really going to matter or mean anything to you. So try this activity. I want you to write down a list of 10 values. Maybe your list is 8, maybe your list is 7, doesn't matter. Write down those values. And then I want you to engage in at least 3 levels of why. Write down the value, ask yourself why. Whatever you respond with, ask yourself why again, etc. For example, when I did this activity the first time, I asked myself what my values were, and the first thing I wrote down was my job. I also wrote down my family and several other things, but the first thing was my job. So I wrote that down and I asked myself, why do I value my job? And my answer was, because I make money. And I said, okay, well, why do you value money? And then my answer was, I have bills. I have things I need to take care of. I have stuff I want to do. And it all requires money. Like, okay, well, why do you want to take care of those things? Why do you want to pay your bills? Why do you have stuff that you want to do? And I answered to myself, because I have a family and I want what's best for them. And it made me realize that the reason why I value my job is because I value my family and I want what's best for my family. Now, that doesn't mean my job isn't a value. In fact, work is a value. It's important to us as people to create and do good work and do things that matter. And that is something to be valued. But when you dig down and you ask yourself why, you find out a better understanding of yourself and where you're coming from, what you want, what you care about, what you love. And that's the importance of finding out what our values are. Finding out your values will help you figure out what your mission is, because you're figuring out what's most important to you. Now you might be thinking, Mike, okay, I did that. Now I'm still not 100% sure what my mission in this life is. You did not give me the magic pill. You're right, I did not. The truth is there is no magic pill to find out what your mission is, okay? It's important for you to do the work to figure out what it is, and I can't tell you what it is. That's a road you have to explore for yourself and find out, and it matters, and it's very important. So, what I'm going to do now is jump to knowing what your mission is. Let's say you've done the work, you know exactly what your mission is. Now what? What do I do with this? Well, I'm going to give you a few things to do. I'm going to give you a few things to do if you know what your mission is. First thing, I want you to write down your mission. Grab an old-fashioned piece of paper and an old-fashioned pen and write the mission statement down so you can hold it and look at it, carry it around, talk to it. Any crazy thing you want to do, I want you to be able to have that mission statement in the palm of your hand so you can read it whenever you want to. Then I want you, either on the same piece of paper, the backside, a different piece of paper, doesn't matter, write down what your values are. All of them, write them down. So you can look at them anytime you want to and check what your values are. I don't want you to just write these down just for a fun activity. I want you to write these down so that you can reference them anytime you want to, and also make a habit out of referencing them at least once a week. And here's why. Take your mission statement and look at it once a week and ask yourself, this past week, This past week that just happened, was I on mission? If not, why not? Does it matter to me to be on mission? And then ask yourself, this coming week, what do I need to do to be on mission? I want to be on mission. What changes do I make to move forward and stay on mission? And then second, I want you to take your values list, and I want you to do something very similar. But I want you to ask yourself a question. This past week, did my actions and my energy align with what I value? Another way to ask yourself that is, did I do the things that support the things that I care about the most? If my family is my value, did I do things to support them? Did I do things to love them? Did I do things to challenge them, help them? Did I do anything to help them grow? When I looked at my mission statement, did I do anything to help myself grow in my personal or professional life? Did I do anything to help others grow? Did my mission statement matter this week? There's an antidote for feeling stuck in life. There's an antidote for coasting through life and wasting time, and that's knowing your mission statement and making sure you're on mission. And part of being on mission is knowing what you value and making sure that your time and your energy are aligned with your values. You can have breakthrough. You can break out from being stuck. You can find yourself on the road to fulfillment. And being on mission is of extreme importance for finding fulfillment. If you found this valuable, do me a favor, hit the follow button. I would love for you not to miss anything I have in the future, and I would love to hear your feedback. So hit the follow button, hit subscribe. That would be fantastic. I appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening to the Road to Fulfillment podcast.